I just wanted to share a little bit about my experience living in the co.space home, and especially when I was first coming into the house. I was a rising junior at Penn State at the time, and I was looking to create a student startup. I had done a little bit of networking on and off campus with other like student entrepreneurs. And yeah, I mean, that was the issue that I was kind of struggling with, was learning how to get my first company sort of off the ground. And Spud and was one of the connectors who helped facilitate a lot of the connections that made my first co-founding team possible. And the reason that I specifically chose the co-space was definitely the intentionality of the community living there. I think outside of Greek life, there are very limited, if any, other houses really like co-space, where there's kind of a group affinity around 20 plus people living under the same roof. And so that was the main reason that I chose specifically to move into the co-space. And then, yeah, when I was coming in, I was certainly extremely excited about it, and that excitement was definitely affirmed in meeting my fellow co-spacers in the first year that I lived in the home. And I stayed there for 3 years. I actually stayed 1 year even after I graduated. So that excitement and the connections that I've built over those 3 years, the momentum, I guess, continued to move forward. So yeah, for those who are considering the option, I mean, definitely take a close look. It's a very unique home, and it was really formative for my experience as a very young entrepreneur. And I know it can offer the same to those of you on a similar trajectory. Living at the co-space for almost 3 years in total, I definitely felt very welcomed, I guess, in the house, which, I guess that's maybe a little cliche, but when you have a house of 20 plus people, having kind of relatively tight bonds, I would say, with many members of the house, like there was a very tangible feeling of community living in there. And I think particularly, looking backwards, for me, this was almost 10 years ago now. I mean, more and more in my career, I sort of understand like this need for sort of placemaking and having a physical space where people have permission to kind of really connect with one another and explore like new ideas. And to me, that kind of placemaking, that kind of feeling of connection was really fostered in the co-space community, living under one roof and across multiple cohorts, like I said, across 3 different years. Looking back on the time that I was living there, I mean, I'm very fond of a lot of the, again, physical projects, kind of placemaking things that I got to do. We built a bike rack, we built like a living wall, we built a little garden. I had a beehive at one point on the property. So yeah, we got to do a lot of those things. But even more than that, I would say really the family dinners that we would have, where we would take turns cooking for one another. Those are some of my fondest memories of having everybody around the big table together and sharing a meal. There's really no better way, I think, to connect with people than that. Very simple, but I really look back fondly, especially on the hot pot meals that we would have occasionally. So yeah, those are some of my favorite memories of living in the house. I would strongly recommend people who are considering it, really think about living at the co-space, particularly if you are a student entrepreneur or other kind of change maker, sort of in the social impact space. At least from my experience a number of years ago now, there really is no better place that you could possibly plug into in the State College, greater State College community than the co-space. And there's really sort of this element of placemaking in the co-space, having permission to step out of your comfort zone and push ideas forward beyond the idea stage into the kind of execution stage, and having a group of people around you who really can support you in that endeavor. Like it makes a huge difference. So like I said, especially if you are somebody who is entrepreneurial inclined or inclined towards kind of impact-based projects, there really is no better place, in my opinion, in State College, certainly, that you can kind of plug into all of the things that are happening all around you that you might not even realize. Like when you're under the roof of the co.space, those opportunities really come your way. And so I do strongly recommend the co.space, especially for young entrepreneurs and change makers out there in State College.